Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Dragon Ball in Overwatch, where I make Overwatch hero kits for Dragon Ball characters. Today, we're starting off with Broly. Broly might actually be one of the most complicated ones I do. I'm not incredibly well versed in Broly, but I have seen the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, and at least in my opinion, he just feels like any other character but green. He's just a green version of the other characters, but stronger. So, first of all, Broly's gonna be a tank. I hope you saw that coming, because in most of the iterations of Broly, he's fucking massive compared to everybody else. Now, I don't want to have Broly be too much like Sigma, so I'm going to give him his Eraser Cannon as his primary ability. I'm going to have his Eraser Cannon, instead of exploding instantaneously, I'm going to have it expand when it hits a surface and deal damage over time for like 1.5 seconds? 70 damage over that 1.5 seconds? And since it's damage over time, that at least gives you the opportunity to escape during that 1.5 seconds. I don't want the radius to be too big, so I'll probably just say it expands maybe slightly larger than Junkrat's bombs, and those blasts are obviously going to be green. Broly's second ability is going to be his, what was it called? He has this like breath key cannon thing. I think it's called Gigantic Breath, which is the weirdest name for a blast. Anyways, this is going to be Broly's tank stun, shall we say. You know how every tank has that one stupid movement gimmick that instant kills anything it touches? Malga has his charge. Anyways, I'm going to try to even out the damage. I think the is it Roaring Breath or Roaring Cannon? I can't remember. I think it's Roaring Breath. I think his Roaring Breath is going to have to do maybe 80 damage with a lot of knockback on it. They won't take damage when they hit a wall because that's a Doomfist thing. You know what? Let's make it so that it's 80 damage if you're at mid or long range, but it's 100 damage and even more knockback if you're directly in front of him. Broly's final ability would probably be the Omega Blaster. So, Broly has this little ball of energy that he can feed power, and it grows bigger and more powerful. This ability will probably have the highest cooldown. He's going to put the ball in a specific location, wherever he chooses, and for 5 seconds, it will absorb any damage that goes through it. Of course, it's going to be small at first. It's going to have a tiny hitbox. But the more it gets hit, accidentally or on purpose, it's going to grow in size. And at the end of those 5 seconds, it's going to pop and deal half the damage that it's taken. Probably also with the same area effect as Junkrat's bomb, because we don't want something like that to be, a big explosion radius. Now, I'm too lazy to come up with an actual ultimate, so Broly's legendary Super Saiyan ultimate ability, he's just gonna get 200 extra health, and every time he runs into somebody, he's gonna chest laser them, because nipple lasers are funny. You take 70 damage for each nipple you get hit by. Alright, now we're moving on to Goku Black, and Goku Black's primary weapon is going to be the Azure Dragon Sword. He's actually able to make a sword out of ki and shoot projectiles from it, but also stab people with it. So the base attack is going to do 40 damage. I don't want him to be too close to Brigitte, but melee's melee. His first ability is going to be shooting 5 ki projectiles out of his Azure Sword, which I don't know why it's called an Azure Sword. It's actually pink. Each projectile is going to do 20 damage and cannot headshot. And every time an enemy gets hit with the sword or with one of the projectiles, it adds a, let's say, divine counter to them. It adds a divine counter to them. And on 3 divine counters, he can activate his second ability, which is to create a centralized explosion on whoever's been hit by it. And if this hits another person, if the explosion hits another person, it adds 1 counter to that other person. Kind of like Ilari's Sun ultimate, except it doesn't automatically insta-kill them just for being touched. We'll probably just call that second ability Divine Explosion. It doesn't really have a name, I don't think, but Goku was hit with a bunch of the projectiles, and it did explode on him. If they get hit with Divine Explosion, it deals 10 damage for every Divine counter that's on them. 3 is just the minimum requirement. You know what? Let's raise it to 20 damage per counter because truthfully, it's not that much and it would take a long time to get it knowing the swing speed of melee in this game. So let's say the maximum you can get is 10 for 200 damage. You're never going to make it that far. I mean, you're going to have some good fucking luck to get that much. And any cleansing ability will just remove it. I got it. If you use your Divine Explosion ability on one of your teammates instead of using it on the enemy, it gives their weapons the ability to add counters to enemies. But if they have an automatic weapon, depending on the weapon, it'll probably take like 2 or 3 hits to add one counter instead of one hit where it would take you. Maybe with people like Malga and Orisa, it would take 10 damage to add a counter. Because I mean, if it added it for every time they got hit, it would be too easy. So you gotta change it based on what the weapon is. Goku Black's ultimate ability is going to be to turn into Super Saiyan Rose, pull out his freaking scythe. Every hit's going to add 3 counters, so he can automatically activate his explosion if he needs to. Or he can keep going to get the full 10 and deal 200 at once and hit everybody in the area. Let's say every time he gets a kill, his explosion resets. Alright, I gotta fine tune this. So the damage from his Divine Explosion is not going to be dealt based on damage radius, it's going to be dealt based on something else. Anybody who's hit that isn't the main person is going to take half the damage. So if the main person gets hit with 10 stacks, which is 200, anybody who's close enough is gonna be hit for 100. That seems fine. Alright, now we're on to Bardock. Bardock will also be hard for me to do because he's literally just a normal Saiyan. So Bardock's literally just gonna have Ki Blast as his normal attack. There's really nothing else I can give him. All of his special stuff just doesn't fit as a normal attack. He'd just be a Doomfist clone if I used all that shit. So he just gets normal Ki Blast. 35 damage per shot. Nope, make it... yeah, 35's fine. 35, no headshots. I don't know about that. Either 35 or 40, because on one hand he doesn't get headshots, but on the other hand 40's a fucking lot. Screw it, 40 damage with headshots, why not? Make the Ki Blast just a little bit smaller so that it actually takes skill to hit the head. Ooh, and make it pierce enemies so it can headshot multiple people in a row. Bardock's first ability is going to be his Rebellion Spear, where he just flies through everybody in a straight line. It would obviously knock everybody away, not straight forward like Doomfist Punch does, but in whatever direction they hit him from. For instance, if somebody walks into Bardock's Rebellion Spear from the left side, it's going to push them from the left instead of pushing them forward. How much should it do? Like 55? I feel like it should do 55 if you're directly in front of Bardock. Like, they could just use his head hitbox to tell if you're directly in front of him. He hits you with his head. It deals 50 damage. To everybody else, it just deals 30 or 40 damage. I don't know. Bardock's next ability is the Final Spirit Cannon, which is literally just an explosive ball of ki. It's literally just a bomb in his hand. Alright. So it knocks people back. This one, they can deal extra damage if they hit a wall or each other. Let's go with that. Doomfist can't be the only one with this shit. We gotta add more to the mechanics. Imagine a Doomfist and Bardock combo just smacking people around like ping pong. Alright, the Final Spirit Cannon does 40 damage regardless of where in the area of effect you get hit, and 20 extra damage if you hit a wall or another person. And the person you hit also takes 10 damage. We don't want it to be too overpowered. Bardock's final ability will be the Rebellion Hammer. And this is literally basically just an uppercut. Except for some reason he uppercuts the person, but they fly forward instead of upward. Whatever. Let's change it. I'm actually really lazy, so this is just gonna be a copy of Doomfist's old uppercut ability. Because I'm fucking lazy. If he ain't gonna use the ability, somebody else might as well. Alright, Bardock's ultimate ability is going to be turning into a Great Ape, since he's the only character that's, actually known for that. It's one of his only transformations, the other being non-canon, which is Super Saiyan. The Great Ape is going to replace his primary fire with a damage-dealing beam that deals, let's go with 140 damage per second, and when they leave the beam, it gives them lower movement speed, so they kind of slow down once they exit the beam. That movement speed penalty will be dependent on how long they were in the beam in the first place, so this will affect tanks more than anybody else. Everybody else will still probably fucking die. The Great Ape's health pool will probably be around 750. His hitbox will grow to the size of either Reinhardt or Bob. And the tail and head hitboxes will swap multiplayers, so critical hits go for the tail because that's the weakness of Great Apes. But if he's not busy using his beam, he can use his melee for 40 damage a hit instead of 35, was it? Nah, we're raising it to 60. He does 60 per punch. Anyways, that's this episode of Dragon Ball in Overwatch. I hope to see you guys in the next two that I have planned. See ya!